welcome to another video. In this video we're playing some Ruffian Scoundrel, which is Lethality operative. My stats from the top left corner. I'm not running the accuracy, though accuracy can be nice. One thing to think about when you're playing with no accuracy, try to make sure, one, use your hard stun if you're taking it while you have revitalizer, so you have the alacrity global cooldown, or not global cooldown, but you know, like the actual cooldown reduction. So when you have an alacrity buff and you pop an ability, it actually has a shorter cooldown, and hard stuns are included, especially Dirty Kick and Debilitate. Not every CC is like that. Most messes are not like that. Whirlwind is like an exception, so is Sphere. But things like Flashbang, I believe, are no longer, I think, in that category. I could be wrong though, it might still be. But some of the, basically some of the messes are not affected by alacrity. And getting into this match, we do have a healer on our team. I believe it's a Pug, and then we have 2 other DPS on our team. So this gives us a good situation where we can actually fight back. I see from their team composition, they have a Rage Jug, a PT Tank. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to be over there. The Rage Jug is not a great time for me, so I don't want to be really near it. The PT Tank, I don't want to be controlled, so I don't really want to be around it too much. But I do back up here because I don't want the attention from that mercenary that ended up deciding to go play objective. And outside of that, we use a virulence sniper, which virulence sniper is not good at hitting a lethality operative. Not only do I have more .dr, or we have the same .dr, I don't actually remember. I also have CDR evasion and longer evasion, so not only can I purge his dots, I can basically completely immune his cool and purge his dots, which is really annoying. I can also self out to purge his dots too. Just in general, I'm a really bad target for him, and I'm also just relatively tanky with .dr. Again, that matters a lot because a lot of the damage they're coming from virulence now is the dots and retaking the dots, and when you are doing damage, it's basically majority of the dots. Like your 2 dots that you have will be the majority of your damage. There's also another thing to think about here too. It's like the flow of combat and like kind of how I'm playing. Our team is clumping for the PT Tank and Rage Jug. Obviously they're killing the Rage Jug though. That's like the other 2 DPS's target. They're playing AP and Engi. You know, obviously that's pretty brutal for Rage Jug to survive. I don't really care about that, and I'm not making it my thing to tunnel one target. I don't feel like that's very fun. I wouldn't want them to tunnel me, but I wouldn't hold it against them, to be honest. But I do think in general, when it comes to Premade versus Premade, you should definitely be punishing the enemy Premade first, and then moving on to other people. But you know, sometimes it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes people are higher priority. So normally, not every SoloQing game is going to be as fair as this one. If fair is even what you could call this, they don't have the damage to deal with this. They have the healing, and that's about it. Which makes it prime for pretty much like anything semi-tanky for me to go in and just be able to basically see a whole bunch of numbers on the screen. Because they're going to survive at least long enough for me to do a couple things. Like I'm not going to, you know, 2 or 3 shot them and not find anybody for the next 30 seconds. I'm going to be pretty much in combat the whole time, so playing something that can not only heal itself, but kind of like defend itself and be self-sufficient. Lethality is like the perfect choice. And this match happened earlier in the day before the Deception one. This is just me solo queuing, and then later on I played Deception. I was going to solo queue into them, but other people wanted to play, and they had 7 players, so I was like, yep, that sounds like it'll be interesting. I did label it as a 6 versus 6 because I thought they only had 6, so I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but it was actually 7 versus 6, which again is not that big of a deal, but when it comes to having one more damage player, it can make a massive difference, especially if you have like 2 heals versus 1. It's actually a massive difference. Numbers advantage in this game is currently what kind of like makes Premade versus Premade usually not as fun as it could be, because there's usually a different amount of players per team. So when it's like a 3 to 4 man Premade going against an 8 man Premade, which if you guys are interested, I do have a 3 man group versus I believe it was Reign of Darkness is like 7 man, and I still do like 17k in it or something as Deception. I can't upload that, but our point of view is just getting absolutely beat up the entire time as they tap all 7 to make sure that they just constantly killed us. Which, you know, is whatever. I don't really care. That's just kind of like how it goes. It's not because they're better and they didn't do less damage than us because they're worse. It's just because they're hitting 3 targets or hitting 7. That plays a large factor in damage, being able to heal, and just in general, the entire flow of the match. When you don't have the same amount of players, it's a very big difference. Killing 8 players with like Vivification, for example, is going to be a lot more than just healing 3 players. I don't really need to explain it too much, but obviously everybody gets kind of like the gist of it. So it's not really like, oh, blah 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 is better. No, it's just that's how it worked out. But again, you know, not every game is going to be equal. You know, it'd be really nice if Premade limits were limited to 4 man. And the reason I say that is because there would be more groups, and if there's more groups, it's going to be more fun matches. And sometimes these groups are going to be like sometimes randomly placed. So sometimes you might play with one Premade that might be your friends, and then sometimes you might be playing with like the enemy. And you know, sometimes you get into a situation, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You know, like you'll get into those situations. And I thought, at least back in the days, that was pretty fun. But also, like in general, like solo queue players have much more of a chance to play the game if they're not getting completely stomped by, you know, 4 DPS a heal on the tank. Because when it comes to like a full 8 man, normally you're going to have 2 tanks, 2 heals, and then you have 4 DPS. That's the normal like 8 stack. That'd be enough to completely wipe the enemy team damage wise. And now you can run 6 DPS in a heal tank. So you can not only hit the pretty much the DPS wall, I would call it, where you would just constantly permanently wipe the enemy team, and there's not more damage to be gained because they're just permanently dead. There's only a certain amount of health pool that everybody has, and there's only so much survivability everybody has. Then I also mention here that I'm SoloQing. The only reason I do this is to kind of like make it clear that I don't have the same agenda as the other 2. Like I'm not a part of the no ideal like group here. I'm not here with the tunnel. The jug, the marker guy. Like I'm not here for that. I'm just trying to have some fun, do some heavy. I do want to team wipe them, but I don't want to like tunnel somebody. Like as I said earlier, I don't really like tunneling just one person, unless it's like I'm trying to kill the tank. If I'm killing the tank or I'm spreading off of them and they are like a Mercular or something, it's a little bit different because I can spread off that person, but for the most part it's not something I really like to do. And it's just because when it comes to like defensives and all that stuff, you kind of have to switch it up and hit other targets, but also at the same time, nobody wants to queue up and just get tunneled by an entire group or multiple people. It's not very fun. I don't blame people for doing it to me, but I know how it feels, so I don't really want to spread that to like other people. And I could totally piggyback off of this Premade on my team to do that, but I choose not to. I do just want to make that clear, and that's not me trying to say, oh, don't tunnel me or something, you know, it's totally fine if you do. I don't really care. I'm just, again, letting you have it known that we don't have the same like team plan. Now, when it comes to like team fight strategy, if you guys are curious, this match is just not good for her, and it's not because I have a different strategy than them. It's more so that if we were all to hit the same target, the tank would just be permadead. To be completely honest with you, this tank would just constantly die. And the ling, there's nothing worse than playing tank and just being like tank tunneled. It's not fun. Like, even though they have 2 heals, he wouldn't survive it. And it wouldn't be me directly tank tunneling him, I'd be indirectly tank tunneling him. Lethality actually does more damage if you tunnel into guard. Get the dots on the tank and then also just hit into guard. And then when they're close together, which they have to be, you double dip with haze on them and then you lethal strike. Back before the tactical it fixed, it would absolutely delete tanks. Even after the nerf, it will still delete tanks, it just won't do it as quickly. So for the most part, you don't really see me hitting the guarded target too much, even though I totally could, and you can see how his health gets completely chopped when I actually do. So if you are interested in, like, hey, how should I play lethality, and how should I try to maximize my damage and make sure I can permanently team wipe them, that would be the way you would want to play. Unfortunately, the person that has guard all the time is the jug. So again, I didn't want to piggyback into just tunneling one person. I feel like it was fair. And also, when it comes to like not making yourself a target, typically being all over, hitting multiple different people, being in and out, weaving, making yourself hard to hit is another thing that will help you survive against other premades, because if you make yourself too much of a nuisance, they will target you and they will most definitely kill you. So if you make yourself kind of hard to hit and not as much of a like a visual threat or obvious threat, you can get away with a lot more, and they'll focus on the other players. At least hopefully. Sometimes they might just completely ignore them. Just go for you, which is, you know, I've got quite a few videos like that. And I know for the past couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure everybody's well aware of this. The past couple of weeks, there's pretty much only been premade. So pretty much every single time I've SoloQinged, I've pretty much gotten into a premade. You can watch a lot of the like 589 crit videos they did. I did 6 different ones. Pretty much every single one of those, I think, except for like one. I went against a premade. Don't really know what to say there. One thing you guys can think of, am I playing a lot of SoloQing games or am I playing a lot of group games? I don't post too many group games, and when it comes to SoloQing games, it seems I have those all the time. Is it because I'm playing a lot of SoloQing games, or is it because I'm playing group games? Or is it just because neither really matters, it's pretty much the same outcome? Could be a good question. Sometimes there's matches where nothing can be done, and sometimes I do just SoloQing a lot. There's sometimes you just get lucky, but most of the time that's not always the case. Most of the games that have happened in group typically are no different, or at least damage-wise, no real difference between what I've accomplished as solo and also at the same time. Most of the group games really only change variants, so like I'll actually be against other groups and you get to see a different variety of players. Obviously sometimes better players, but they do have a tank and healer too. Other than that, if you guys have any questions about lethality, feel free to leave them in the comments, or just anything else in general, feel free to ask. I'll be more than happy to help.